How's it going, YouTube? Chris here at my home theater. Got a brand new video for you today. Hope everybody had a good week. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. I want to talk about some movies again today, and hope you've been enjoying those, kind of like a series. And anyway, I went through my movie collection again and went through some movies. Found some 4K movies that I really like that did not have an upgraded Atmos or DTSX soundtrack. They were in 4K, but they didn't take the time to redo the soundtrack. So I'll cover those in just a few minutes. But the first movie that I want to talk about is a movie that is actually Blu-ray that's not on 4K, but it has an Atmos soundtrack. And I've seen videos on this before, and actually when I saw the video, scoured online to try to find out where to get this movie. And it was kind of hard to find, and the price was high, but I bought it. So without further ado, this movie, I just watched it again today. Phenomenal movie, sounds wonderful, and it's Gravity. And this is the Diamond Lux edition, and it is a 1080p Blu-ray. Got just a beautiful cover here. If I can get this thing open. Open it up 4 times, and it's got different discs and stuff in here. Just looks really good. I really enjoyed this actual edition of the movie because it is in Atmos. And man, how could you make sound in space? There is no sound in the vacuum of space. So the sound engineers had to come up with genius ways to make this movie sound good. I mean, to be more realistic. I mean, you know, there explosion in space. Is there going to be a fireball? Is there going to be fire? And in vacuum, shouldn't be anything. So anyway, they had to come up with some ingenious ways to make a soundtrack for this movie and still be realistic. So in the beginning, the opening scene, I mean, off from the distance, you can hear real faint in one speaker, and then the sound gets closer. And then you can hear George Clooney just flying around the room from one speaker to the next speaker. Just sounds amazing. You get Ed Harris back at Mission Control, and when the screen pans, his voice pans from speaker to speaker. Sandra Bullock's voice after the debris hits the space shuttle, and she gets thrown off and tumbling through space. They go inside her helmet. It's just amazing, and how these sound engineers mastered that soundtrack. And again, when she's on the International Space Station, the sounds, I mean, the Atmos is just in full, it's alive. And they just did a really good job. So if you hadn't got this movie, most of you guys probably do. You've heard about it. Man, I highly suggest getting the Diamond Lux edition. I think there's maybe some overseas editions, I think I've seen on Facebook that you can get with a Atmos soundtrack. I highly recommend getting one with an Atmos soundtrack because they did a real good job on this movie. Would love to see this on 4K. Hopefully they will at some point in time. The scenes of the space and how the Earth looks, I think it would be a nice 4K transfer. So hopefully Warner Brothers sooner or later will do that. My next movies is not necessarily one movie, but it's 3 movies, and they came out on 4K a while back, and I was excited that they come out, but when I got them, they were not in an Atmos soundtrack. They're in DTS HD Master, but it's the Dark Knight trilogy. Now, they brought these out a while back. Now, why they didn't take the time to do the soundtrack, I do not know. Later on, they brought out the first, I think it's 4 movies, and they did the soundtrack on those. The movies look phenomenal. The soundtrack looked good. Even on the older films, and they did a real good job. I like the transfer on the sound and all, but I felt like they could have done an Atmos on these and would have made them better. This one is by far my favorite. Heath Ledger Joker, I mean, you can't get any better than that. And I love Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. It was good. But in the Batman series, man, Heath Ledger, he nailed that role. Love this movie. This movie's my favorite. Has the IMAX shots. I have the 16:9 screen, so from it going 235:1 to 16:9, 185:1, really like the IMAX shot. So, man, it would be nice to get an upgraded soundtrack on these at some point in time. I'm a movie collector. I like movies. I like picture quality. I love sound quality. To me, it's a marriage together. I don't want one without the other. Like I said, the DTS soundtracks on these, they do sound good, but man, it would sound a whole lot better if they were Atmos or DTSX. Probably Atmos is what they would normally do. The next movie is I love these movies, and it's Creed. I don't know why they did not do a Atmos soundtrack. Did they need to do an Atmos soundtrack on this movie? Probably not. Creed 2 is in Atmos, and I really like the scenes where, you know, they're in the ring and they're boxing and just the crowd, and it just, to me, it just adds to the movie, even though it might not be an action-packed movie. But what I love about the Atmos is object-based, and they can put wind or sound, or you got a jet flying over. I mean, just anything to just make it more real, make it sound more like you're actually in the movie. I wish they would have done an Atmos soundtrack. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. Like I say, Creed 2 is in Atmos. Picture quality in this movie, it's phenomenal. Would love to hear it in Atmos. If they do, that's fine. I'll buy it again. If they don't, I'm happy with this version, but would love to hear it in a Atmos. Just my opinion. The next movie is these Tom Cruise movies that came out here a while back, which was Days of Thunder and Top Gun and War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds and Top Gun came out in Atmos, and I don't know why they dropped the ball on Days of Thunder and did not do an Atmos soundtrack. To me, I think they were missing out. This movie would be great in Atmos, and Top Gun and War of the Worlds, they knocked it out of the park with those movies. Those movies sound great. Top Gun always sounded good, and it's just like 1,000 times better in my opinion in the Atmos. But in this movie, I really think they dropped the ball. With all these movies, I don't see the point of doing the picture if you're not going to do the sound. I mean, like I said, it's a marriage to me. I don't think it's hard to have one without the other. But even so, this soundtrack is Dolby Audio, and my receiver up converts this Dolby Audio to 7.2.4, and it still sounds good, but not like a dedicated Atmos soundtrack. So I really wish maybe one day that they'll redo it. They probably won't, but it would just be nice to have that. Next movie, some people like this movie, some people don't. I've heard a lot of positive things that people like about this movie, and it is Interstellar. This movie is awesome. I love it. A little on the strange side, but I mean, just a phenomenal movie. The visuals in this movie are stunning, of the black hole, of the planets they go to, the water planet, the ice planet. I mean, everything about this movie, I love the visuals in this film. But there again, they dropped the ball and didn't do an Atmos or DTSX soundtrack. And again, this movie, it still sounds good. Sounds really good. And it would have been nice to get that soundtrack. Maybe they'll bring it out one day. If they do, I'll buy it again. Like I said, I'm a movie collector, and I want the picture and the sound. I want the best of both worlds. So hopefully, maybe they'll do it, and I'll buy it again. So next movie is Terminator 2. And this is Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and I think they did a good job on remastering the picture for this release. It's Lionsgate, and they normally do really good on all their movies. To me, they do a top-notch job on remastering and bringing them out, but man, they really dropped the ball on the soundtrack. There again, DTS HD Master. That's kind of the go-to when they don't do Atmos or DTSX. And again, sounds good, but I would love to hear the Atmos or DTSX soundtrack. Good movie. Got it home. Then I saw the soundtrack. A little bit disappointed. But again, if they'll bring it out, I'll rebuy it. I see a lot of movies coming back out, and I always look on Blu-ray.com and I check the soundtracks and stuff. And a lot of movies, they'll have re-releases on them, and the first thing I do is run over there and I check the soundtrack, especially if it's a movie that I know that has come out on 4K before but didn't do the soundtrack. And one of the movies that I thought I should have brought up, which I've talked about it before, was Hunt for Red October. They brought it out again recently, not an upgraded soundtrack, but I've talked about that in another video. But anyway, this last movie here, I really like this movie, and I was excited when they put it out on 4K. I had a hard time finding it, couldn't find it anywhere. Best Buy didn't have it, Walmart didn't have it. I ended up having to order this movie. So I couldn't get any kind of discounts on it. I paid top notch for it, but it was Universal Soldier. Back in the day when this movie come out, I mean, you look at them two guys, Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme. To me, they were at the top of their game, the height of their fame, and in their movies and stuff. And I love this movie. And when I got it, it was not a remastered soundtrack. And to me, this soundtrack did not age well with this movie. I was just very, very, very disappointed in the soundtrack. It sounds like an old movie. Even played through a nice surround system. I was not impressed. But they did a good job on the picture. Again, it's Lionsgate. They did a real good job on the picture, but they failed to remaster the soundtrack. Just my opinion. Hey, if you're going to take the time to do the movie and bring it out on 4K, redo the soundtrack. I mean, this movie has a lot of gunfire and shooting and explosions, and I think it would have been real good in an Atmos soundtrack. But that's just my opinion. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Man, I'll tell you, I'm at 414 subscribers at this time. I am scratching and trying to get to 1,000. I would love to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. I got a giveaway I want to do with 1,000 subscribers. And guys, I thank you for supporting me. Some have supported me from day one when I was just doing like little demos and updates and stuff like that. And trying to do different stuff, trying to get my foot on the ground and get established. And a lot of times that's hard to do, but I'm learning. I'm right now doing these videos and talking, and I'm out of my element. This is not something that I'm real good at, but I'm learning. So I thank you, all of y'all that have watched my videos and endured my videos. Sometimes I rewatch them. It's hard for me to endure them, but